I always felt with this case that I was on the right side of history. It's what kept me going. I know I'm right, and we've proven that I was right. Certainly this case is the most controversial free speech case of our generation. This film really tells the story of the persecution of Julian Assange, the lawfare that he faced, the legal cases that he faced, the prosecution he faced for publishing evidence of war crimes and human rights abuse around the world. I said, you cannot distinguish between what WikiLeaks does in receiving and publishing information and what the mainstream media does every day. They went for him to make an example of him, to achieve that very outcome, to warn every single other person who might be willing to do what he did, to show them what will happen to you if you dare. Now that is dangerous. This prosecution is not just about Julian Assange. It's about our democracy.
Donald Trump wanted to prosecute the press and discussed putting a head on a pike. WikiLeaks' publication of the CIA Vault 7 meant that the CIA was lobbying for Julian's head to be the one on the pike.
We had to win the narrative and run a political campaign and an advocacy campaign about why this case was important for free speech, why what was happening to Julian was so important. And so that necessarily involved engaging with the media and with, in this case, filmmakers. And so I think for many people who will watch this film, they will know what they know about Julian Assange because of what they've read in the media, and this film will make you question everything that you've heard before.
We all knew who Assange was, and I suppose in my mind I'd thought, this is a baddie because you don't spew out a country's military secrets.
Mr. Speaker, it's of great regret that Julian Assange remains in the Ecuador embassy. It's about time that this miserable little worm walked out of the embassy and gave himself up to British justice.
Well, this film has been in progress for 5 years. They started filming 5 years ago. But actually what you see in the film is not just the filming with us over the past 5 years, but there's footage in the film that was filmed with us with WikiLeaks since 2010, so 15 years of behind-the-scenes footage. Well, it's my entire professional life. I was a young lawyer when I first took this case on with Julian. I'm his longest-serving lawyer. So I spent 7 years visiting him inside the Ecuadorian embassy where he was detained. I spent 5.5 years visiting him in a high-security prison. I had to continually hold on to my outrage about what was happening to Julian so that it didn't become normalised, because it went on for so long. And there were moments on the way where we began to doubt whether he would ever be free, and in fact whether he'd make it out alive.
CIA Director Mike Pompeo, his first public speech as CIA Director. You would expect China, Russia, Iran, you would expect it to be about terrorism, right? But it wasn't.
WikiLeaks walks like a hostile intelligence service and talks like a hostile intelligence service.
The first time I felt that we had a real shot at getting him out, and it was closer than ever, was when the Australian Prime Minister came to power and he had committed to me that he would do whatever he could to resolve that case. So I still wasn't sure whether we'd get him out, and it took almost 3 years and a year of behind-the-scenes negotiations, which were very intense and very touch and go. I didn't know for sure that I'd be getting on the plane with him until 2 days before we took off. And I was overcome with emotion, and so there's quite an emotional scene at the end where I put my head on Julian's shoulder and sort of grab him by the arm to say, we did it, and he wipes away a tear. And in some ways, the filmmakers have done an amazing job. But for me, there was so much more happened behind the scenes. The amount of work that went into getting him out, and not just for us as his lawyers, but the immense global campaign, the protests around the world for him. And I hope that people walk away from this film understanding the cost of that and what that means for democracy and for anybody else who might dare to do what Julian did. We have to keep fighting for democracy and for human rights, and it's possible to win.
Sometimes we win.
Sometimes we do win. Fight for free speech.